يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا يا هلا.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. This is Let's Talk, coming to you live from our Johannesburg studios. Of course, we are beaming out on ITV networks. It's a Wednesday morning and amazing stories lined up for you. But I guess to start off, what we can say to you, and I think this is the question on everybody's minds, not only in South Africa, but globally as well. Will he go or won't he go? That's a big question being asked about Zuma and his presidency. So all I can say is that we're waiting with bated breath. Perhaps we'll know later today or later this week, but of course you and I and the entire world will be watching this space very closely. The stories we're looking at today is eco-sustainability and eco-school and sustainability. We're also going to be talking about pregnancy problems. But right now we're going to be talking to a father. He has an 8-year-old son who suffers from cerebral palsy and just how this has impacted negatively on their lives. All he asks is support, any type of support for his son to get the best medical treatment possible and for the son to be able to go to school. It's a sad story, and from time to time we do share these stories with you, hoping and praying that you will dig deep into your hearts and in your pockets to make this dream or this hope and aspiration a reality for this family. Mohammed Rashid Hartley, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam. Jazakallah for having me on.
Lovely to have you here. You have an 8-year-old son whose name is Faizan.
Gee.
We were hoping you'd bring him in, but you were unable to do so.
Yeah, I'm off for that.
Okay, he's spending the day with his mom.
That's correct, yeah.
All right. A very sad story indeed. Your son, according to you, was born normally, alhamdulillah.
Gee.
Where did things start going wrong? And when did you guys realize that your son has got cerebral palsy?
Well, after he was born, 2 weeks later he developed gastro and he was hospitalized for over a month. And then, 3 years later, we were staying in Mitchell's Plain and he started having fits on a regular basis. We took him to a hospital and at first they said, no, it's nothing. It's nothing serious. Then we had him tested at the Red Cross Hospital. And when they did the EKG and the ECG, they said that no, he's got partial brain damage on the left-hand side of his brain. So he has got mild CP, whereby the right-hand side of his body has been affected. So his development in his speech, his motor skills has been severely diminished. So his right-hand side of his body is lame.
He's 8 years old. He has been diagnosed as having cerebral palsy, and you also tell me that he doesn't go to school. Now, first and foremost, let's understand what is cerebral palsy and how you as a young father is having to cope with this.
Okay. Well, cerebral palsy is a developmental issue whereby the brain gets damaged either during or after birth, where it causes significant damage to either the left-hand side of the brain, right-hand side, or both sides. Now we have severe cases of cerebral palsy which affects the entire body, where the child cannot swallow their food, cannot talk, cannot move their limbs in any way, shape or form, and are restrained to wheelchairs or just laying in bed the entire time. Now luckily for my son, he's only got partial brain damage. So his motor skills and his speech and his motor functions in certain parts are not working properly.
So what does he have, about 90% or 75%?
Well, okay, we can say about 75% because although he can walk and he can
Normally?
run, well, he walks on his toes on his right foot.
Why is that?
Well, because of the cerebral palsy, it has caused his legs to develop differently. So he walks on his toes. So he's also got a club foot now, as well, on his right foot.
Was he born with a club foot, or is
No.
it because...
It's because now of the cerebral palsy.
And he hasn't had the right treatment and exercise, etc., so now the foot has formed into a club foot.
Yeah, so he walks on his toes, which is now causing cuts under his toes as well when he walks in his shoes. It's also affecting his spine as well, where he's been complaining now and then that his back is sore. His right arm is a bit lame, so he cannot grip onto objects with his right hand or pick them up with his right hand. And there's no strength in that arm. And you can actually see, in terms of, if you look at the shape of his arm, he cannot turn his wrist, as well, so that there's no movement.
So occupational and physiotherapy is crucial in his life.
Yes, it is.
Is he getting it?
Unfortunately, at the moment, not.
Why not?
I wasn't able to find work over the last year or so. And
you lost your job 2 years ago.
Yeah. And for me, it's been a struggle, to try and get him the help that he needs. And for me as a father, when you cannot help your child, that makes you feel as if there's nothing you can do.
You feel like you're a failure.
Yeah, I felt as a failure.
You feel you're letting him down.
I have failed him. That's the long and short of it. There's no way that I can say that I did the best I could when I didn't, because he wouldn't have to suffer the way that he did.
As we speak right now, I know because of your financial circumstances, and I'm so sorry, I can see how hard this is for you. And I'm just hoping, inshallah, by way of this program, that people will come out in their droves to help you better your situation for your son, maybe offer you a good job and some decent accommodation. And of course, the other big thing is the schooling for your son, am I right?
For me, the most important thing is that he is taken care of. Schooling, his physiotherapy, the operation that he needs on his foot so that he can walk straight. I mean, I have to, when I take him to the park, he can't climb the ladder to go on the slide. I have to hold him and make sure that he doesn't slip, because he cannot grip onto the pole. And now, even when he's sitting on the swing, he cannot hold the swing with both hands and swing his legs and be free to be a child. I always have to keep an eye on him, because if he gets hurt, it makes me feel even worse. Because, sometimes in the morning, I take him down to the creche.
So he goes to creche on a regular basis.
Gee.
How do they cope with him? Because he's clearly a special needs child.
No, they do cope with him. There is teachers that, they have
Okay, hold that thought. Let's take a caller. Assalamu alaikum to our caller. What's on your mind? Welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and assalamu alaikum to the guests as well. I didn't actually remember the brother's name.
Rashid.
My name is Brother Rashid. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I can clearly say that Red Cross Hospital has failed you, because it was their duty to do research and actually get a diagnosis on why your son was getting seizures. Because seizures is not just something that is to wipe off and say, no, there's nothing serious. They need to find out why the child has seizures. I myself became an epileptic because I was overdosed with 9 epilems a day at the age of 8 at Red Cross Hospital. By a doctor. It was a doctor that overdosed me. He took me from 1 3 times a day to 3 times a day. And I was only 8 years old, and that is how I became epileptic.
Okay, sister, can we get to the point? What words of support do you have for Rashid Hartley on the show this morning?
I'm trying to say that Brother Rashid is not the failure, it's actually the hospital. But inshallah, Allah will grant, Allah's mercy will come upon Brother Rashid and the family.
Inshallah.
I would like to know if I can get Brother Rashid's number. Inshallah, I want to make a difference and see what I can do, inshallah.
Ameen. My producers will give it to you now. Just stay on the line. You'll get his number, inshallah. Thank you so much for calling in. Thank you for that ray of hope. Ameen, ameen. Yeah. All right, the sister raises a very valid point, and that is the hospital has failed you. You can't stop, you can't leave it there. We do know that state hospitals are understaffed, possibly even under-resourced, but we also know that they do have the top specialists that put in time at the state hospitals. Do you think that it might be worth your while? And I know that there's issues around working, there's issues around transport, there's huge issues around finances. But if that was made available to you, do you think you could get someone to help, maybe take your son to hospital, have a full and a thorough assessment, or perhaps a very big-hearted medical professional is listening in and watching us this morning and is prepared to take your son in for a full physical, give you a report, and then perhaps point you in the right direction as to the ongoing treatment for your son, because we know that he's going to have treatment for the rest of his life.
Sure. Anything, or anyone that can help with anything that he needs. You know, for him to get the best life possible, that's the most important thing. For me, as a father, I want him to have the education, to be able to walk properly without having to complain about his back being sore, to be able to go play with his friends.
And his toes being cut all the time.
Yeah. For him to go play with his friends, not having to run and then stumbling, falling and getting hurt. And then for him to learn, you know, to be able to speak and to, you know, show himself more and be open about himself.
Why do you think you failed him? I do know, sadly, that your marriage has ended and you only had the one child from the marriage. You have custody of the child. Why is that?
Well, at the moment, you know, me and his mom, we struggled to find us, you know, a place to stay together, and we lived apart for so long. And because of her situation also, where she's not working as well, and she doesn't have a stable place to stay, you know, she couldn't take him with, and so she asked, you know, me to look after him, and I've been doing that. And
for how long?
It's been for about 7-8 months now already, you know.
So he does live with her on a permanent basis?
Yes.
Okay.
You know,
but because she's not working, you've now taken on custody for now.
Yes.
Is this going to become permanent, or is it just temporary?
At the moment, you know, we haven't discussed what is the situation. But for me, I would want him to be with me, because I know that I could give him what he needs.
Inshallah. Let's take an ad break. I'm talking to Mohammed Rashid Hartley. He lives on the West Rand in Vleerhof, to be precise. He's talking to us about his story, which is a very sad story. He was married, they had a baby, and the baby is diagnosed with cerebral palsy. The baby is now 8 years old, but due to a bad hand that he was dealt with, he lost his job, his wife is unemployed, they are subsequently separated. He lives with his mom and dad, who are helping support him, but he finds himself in a very tenuous situation. He's unable to fully provide for his son. His son needs to go to a special needs school. His son needs specialized ongoing medical treatment, and Rashid is sitting here at an absolute loss, because he really doesn't know where and how to turn. He desperately wants as a normal as possible life for himself and his son. So what we're saying today is, if in any way you believe you can help better the plight of Rashid and his son, we'd love to hear from you. You can even contact him directly, whether it's in the form of physiotherapy, occupational therapy, any other type of therapy, or even finances. We're more than happy to hear from you. Stay with us. We'll go continue this conversation right after the ad break. Rashid Hartley is in studio with us talking to us about the condition of his son, Faizan Hartley. Faizan is 8 years old. He suffers from cerebral palsy, and all Rashid wants is someone to assist with regular physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and if possible, that his son Faizan, who is now 8 years old, attends a creche but can be taken into a special needs school. But that too comes with challenges because Rashid doesn't have transport. As a matter of fact, he was just telling me that when he did have a job 2 years ago, he used to walk from Vleerhof, that's on the West Rand, Main Reef Road, to Bryanston. He used to walk to and from work because he didn't even have money for taxi or bus fare. So we take things for granted, you know. We in the society of want all the time. But there are people out there who don't even aspire after the wants. They desperately need the simple things in life. And that is true for you, is it not?
True. For me, it's just about the little things. I've never ever wanted a very big house or all the money in the world. For me, it's just been about my son and his needs. Mm-hmm. And I felt as when I was working, I was doing the best that I could. And then when I lost my job, that's when everything fell apart. Lost everything, the home, my marriage, and it has made me feel as a failure towards my son. So every morning when he wakes up, you know, he still smiles at me. But when I look into the mirror, I can't smile back and say that, you know what, you're doing a decent job as a father, when that's not true. Because I failed him. I've taken life for granted, myself. You know, going through life without thinking that there's going to be consequences to not doing everything the right way. And, you know, as I say, the sins of the father will be passed on to the sins of the son, to the son and so on. And I felt every morning since I lost my job that I haven't accomplished much in life. And now my son has to go through the daily life of being punished for that. And all I want is for him to have the life that he needs.
I can see how emotional you are. And all I can say to you is, inshallah, have yaqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so Ghafur Rahim. And we have viewers here on ITV that have such big hearts and such deep pockets that somebody's going to come to the fore and someone's going to offer you some assistance. You told me off air that all you want is a bit of normalcy in your life and in your son's life. Sure. You're not putting out a begging bowl. You're just wanting a bit of assistance to get you on your feet and to get your son into a proper special needs school. Now, I know there's a school in Forest Town, and I'm wondering what sort of support would you need to get your son into that school? Because I know you live very far away from Forest Town. So we're probably talking transporting him to school every day.
Yeah, transporting him to school. My mother, she sees to the lunch and everything in the morning. So he will be sorted when it comes to lunch. But transport, yes, is the main thing. Transport, to school, transport home. My dad is sickly, right? So my dad still wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go help with deliveries in the morning.
Currently, I know you've been out of work for over 2 years, but currently you're also doing the bread run in the mornings. You do bread deliveries just so that you can have a bit of independence and a bit of money in your pocket.
But
that's not nearly enough to keep you going.
But at the end of the day, shukran to Allah that every little bit helps, whether, it's 100 Rand or 200 Rand or even 300 Rand, just so long as I can see to my son for a pair of shoes so that he can walk comfortably, some clothes on his back. I'm not worried about myself. I'm an adult, I can live without the essentials. But he's a child who needs all of that. He needs the love and the support from everybody around him. Not just because of his condition, but because he's a blessing to all of us. He's always been that way.
Rashid, I know you said to me that you're doing the bread run now, which makes it difficult for you to take your son to hospital. If somebody calls in and offers to take him to hospital, number one, because you want him to be assessed fully, or if somebody called in and says that they're going to do a full medical on him at no charge, and then can plan a way forward for his treatment, inshallah. Meds as well, if they are necessary. Is he on meds at the moment?
He is on Epilum as well,
Right.
to manage the fits that he does get sometimes when he,
So how are you funding? Where and how do you get the Epilum?
Well, he goes every 3 months to get medication, because he does have another illness as well.
Right, so where does he go, to the local clinic?
Yes, to the Raymond Musa Mother and Child Hospital.
Right.
He goes there every 3 months to get medication. So he gets, a 3-month supply of Epilum.
Are they not able to do a full assessment there?
They are, as far as I know. But, for me, time constraints of going there at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, then waiting until...
If a social worker contacts you, I'm thinking CIT or Islamic Care Line, or somebody who has a bit of spare time on their hands and they live close by, if they offer to take him on a regular basis to Rahima Musa for him to get physiotherapy, OT, and whatever else is needed, would Faizan be happy to go with them?
Yes, Faizan is a very
loving child.
He's very happy. He is not the type of child who will dislike you, or he loves everybody. He's friendly with everybody. A bit too friendly sometimes.
Okay.
But that is what makes him special.
All right.
He's always had a kind heart. And he's never looked at himself and says, there's something wrong with me.
How has this changed you as a person? And I'm sure it's had a great impact on your family as well.
Yeah. It's made me more humble and more open-eyed to life. That not everything is black and white. Not everything is rosy, and the grass is not always greener on the other side. Life is life. You get a bad hand sometimes, and how you persevere through that is, where you get your rosy from. You make dua every single day. Yes, Allah works in His time. And for you, that is where you must have your patience. You must have your virtue to say, it will come in time. And, shukran to Allah that He has granted me the opportunity to get my life in order now and to see to my son.
And when you talk about your life in order, we're not talking issues of bad behavior in the past. We're not talking about issues of perhaps being a bad boy or a drug addict or anything.
No.
It's just about not having a steady job.
Yeah,
that's what we're
job.
talking about. You've had no other issues in the past.
No.
We've got 2 minutes to wrap up time. What is the very strong message you want to leave our viewers with, and what sort of appeal do you want to make?
Well, for the parents who have children with cerebral palsy or any type of disability, never look at your child as a burden. Because a lot of people, they see their child as a burden and their lives change. My son was never a burden to me.
You love him unconditionally.
You love him unconditionally. He's not the reason why my marriage fell apart. It's the circumstances. It happens to everyone. But love that child until your last day. And whatever help you can get for that child, take it. Whether it is financial or wherever you can get that help.
And support.
Take that chance. Because not everybody will be able to help you. But as long as you can give your child some type of normal life, your life will be fulfilled.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Do you attend a support group? Because I think it's important for you to be with like-minded people and just share experiences and support each other, give each other strength.
No, I don't have a support group at the moment.
Again, it would be the transport issue.
Yeah. But for me, my parents are there, for my son every day. They have patience for him.
Rishi, thank you so much for coming in. It can't have been easy. I know it wasn't easy. You've been crying throughout the interview simply because you want the best for your child. You don't want the glitz, you don't want the glamour, you don't want branded clothing, you don't want a big house. All you're asking is for the simple things in life, perhaps a good steady job, and for your son to get the support that he needs, to go regularly to a medical center like Rahima Musa, to be fully assessed, for you to get a full report on what his exact condition is, the type of medical care that he requires on an ongoing basis, for him to get the added therapy that he needs, and last but not least, to be able to attend a special needs school on a regular basis.
Sure.
And that's not asking for much.
No, it's
We know that our community is going to band together, inshallah, and they will come to your aid. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It hasn't been easy for you, hasn't been easy for me to listen, but it opens our eyes and it makes us realize that we take too much for granted and we need to start counting our blessings. Alhamdulillah, shukran, and wassalam.
Walaikum salam. Jazakallah.
That was Rashid Hartley with his heart-wrenching story. 8-year-old son that suffers from cerebral palsy. He's been unemployed for over 2 years and he just desperately needs a bit of assistance in getting his child a normal life as possible. So please, if you're able to make a difference, do make contact with him. We do have his telephone number on hand, and we hope and pray in every little small way we are able to change the circumstances of Rashid Hartley and his son Faizan Hartley. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, welcome back. And after that heart-wrenching first story that we covered on the father and son, the story about the father's perspective on a child who suffers from cerebral palsy, we could hear that he was just in a very dark place, and we hope and pray that things are going to get better from here on. Next, we have the editor of, you're not going to believe this, the Living and Loving magazine. I was quite shocked to hear that they're still in circulation. One of those amazing glossies. I think when my kids were growing up, I kind of hung on to the Living and Loving. It was almost like a Bible. You know, you kept going to it whenever you had an issue with your children's feeding problems and milestones or not reaching milestones. But I believe they're still around. So let's hear from Sonia Nadir. Morning, welcome to the program.
Morning. Nice to be here.
So how long have you been involved with Living and Loving?
Well, I've been with it now for about 4 years, going into my 5th year. But the magazine itself has been going for 48 years, which is absolutely incredible.
Yes. I mean, when my kids were little, I remember, you know, just being stuck to the Living and Loving all the time. Because then, I mean, I'm talking way back, 25 odd years back, you know, social media was probably just breaking. You know, we didn't have that much access as we have now.
Yeah.
So having said that, Sonia, how does the social media platforms impact on hard copies of glossies and I guess any publication for that matter?
Well, I think the way we see it is really that you have different platforms that you can offer your readers. So depending what it is or where you are, you've got access to that particular brand. So in case of Living and Loving, if you've got time and, you know, you would have your hard copy of your magazine that you can look at, you can refer to, but sometimes maybe you're stuck in the traffic or you're waiting for your kids at school. You've also got the luxury of being able to interact with us on social media or to go to our website. So
you are online, obviously.
So we are absolutely online, but you know, so I don't really, I just feel like it's a medium, and it's a medium of choice. So, and obviously the hard copy is beautiful to produce and you can be so much more visual and creative, where obviously on your social media platform you've got to be very newsy, very current, pick up on trends. So it's slightly just different ways of producing that particular content that you feel that your readers need at any particular time.
Okay, so they're still doing, Living and Loving still doing what it's always done, and that is to talk to the pregnant and the new mom. And I should imagine moms of toddlers and teens as well.
Yes.
So it's talking to parents, it's talking about parenting styles and how to raise your children so that they grow up to be very grounded and well-adjusted. But for today's show, we're going to talk about pregnancy problems, the type of things or the most common problems that you probably can be faced with when you are pregnant. And very especially for a first-time mom, it can be pretty
scary.
Traumatic.
We've all been down that road, I think, you know.
So how have you guys over the years covered those, and what are the most common problems you can talk to me about?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, especially if I'm talking to a new mom, I think what's something that is very common these days is...
Look, it's a very special time in her life.
Yes, yes.
But at the same time, also a time of deep anxiety and concern too.
Yeah.
Your body's going through all those crazy changes.
All those hormones. I think it's also, one needs to distinguish between what is a problem or a condition and pregnancy symptoms. And obviously in the magazine we would cover things like nausea and swelling and restless leg and all those kind of common symptoms. But if we're talking about common problems that sort of manifest in pregnancy that make some moms nervous, I think maybe that's something we can chat about in sort of more in depth. So the one thing that comes to mind straight away is high blood pressure, which a lot of moms are, well, they're picking up that they have high blood pressure for whatever reason.
Due to the pregnancy.
Due to the pregnancy. And they call it gestational high blood pressure. So you might have had a normal blood pressure, but suddenly you fall pregnant, your hormones go haywire, you go see your doctor and suddenly says, oh no, you've got very high blood pressure. So of course she's going to like, oh, what's going to happen? But I think the point here is that it's not necessarily dangerous, provided that you are managing it and controlling it. But obviously, if you're not going to control it, you obviously face the risk of complications later down the line.
Yes, and also after baby is born,
Exactly.
if you've not managed the blood pressure during the pregnancy, I should imagine that after the pregnancy you're going to be sitting with this problem.
Well, not necessarily, because what they do find is if you have gestational high blood pressure, is that it kind of runs rampant during the pregnancy, but once you've had the birth, often your hormones level out and then the blood pressure goes back to normal. But if it doesn't, for whatever reason, your doctor would then, after your birth, put you on medication so that you can sort of manage that. So that does happen.
Sonia, what's the risk to the baby if your blood pressure goes through the roof whilst you're pregnant?
I think the most important thing if it's not being managed properly is that you run the risk of developing a condition called preeclampsia, which is another thing that moms don't know much about. And if you get that at that stage in your third trimester, I mean, your baby, you know, it's life-threatening to the mom and to the baby. And I mean, I don't want to scare moms or anything like that, but I mean, you run a risk of things going really wrong in your during the birth. Plus, you have all these complications that happen. So if you're not controlling it, chances are quite likely that you might have to be induced, and there's a risk of a preterm birth. You might have to go and have your Caesar, and all those run with extra risk. So right at the beginning, you want to manage it so that you don't put yourself and your baby into danger.
And have all
It
of those
starts right at the
complications.
beginning, yeah.
Let's also look at the issues. Let's assume that's your first child and you
Yeah.
present with high blood pressure, gestational high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Is that indicative of the fact that with subsequent pregnancies, you're going to present with the same problem?
I think, I'm not a medical expert here, but from what I know is that not necessarily, but obviously you would now have a history of it. So when you fall pregnant with your second one, the first thing your doctor's going to ask you is like, have you got a history of high blood pressure? And then he will monitor you for that. So that's why it's so very important to have that good relationship with your medical team, because, and that's why you go for your checkup, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Now, not only do we talk about common pregnancy problems, we also talk about issues around birthing methods.
Yeah.
And I think you guys have covered all of that in most of your... how many editions have you guys had out up till now? I mean, I think you said 45...
Over 48 years, I have no idea.
Is it a once
But it's every month, so it's a monthly magazine.
So do the math.
So can you imagine, we've revisited these topics time and time again, and it doesn't really change. But for us, what's quite interesting, and I think what people lose, is that every year we're talking to a new set of mothers,
Absolutely,
isn't it?
absolutely.
And their children are growing up and they've got different, so they're all at different stages.
So it's the same message you're giving, but you're just targeting at a newer audience,
Yes.
a more enlightened audience, I should imagine,
Yeah.
and you take a different spin on the issue.
Yeah.
But in this day and age where we have all sorts of bloggers and all these social media platforms that
Yeah.
are available, moms to be are very, very savvy. They are very well informed.
Yes.
Are you having to change your stance to reach that mom?
I think gradually, yes, we have, because I think it's about embracing all these people that moms have access to, you know. So I think I've been in the business for a very long time, but where traditionally it would just be the journalist and you go and speak to an expert and you'd write your article and, you know, deliver whatever messages you're going to do. Now we also include the mom, we will include the bloggers, you know, these are all moms.
Right.
And I feel like there's much more sharing happening.
So you cover many perspectives.
Yes, and
on the story.
And I think it's wonderful that we can
Absolutely.
do that, because I always felt like even 5 years ago, that a lot of what was being produced was like very prescriptive. Of like, you know, this is the way we do it and this is now the trend. But now you find it's like all the moms are giving their advice and their opinions. But I do still feel there is that need of like, as much as they think or they feel that they know what they are doing, there is also a lot of uncertainty. So what we try and do is also always go back to the expert and say, well, these are what moms are saying, but what is your opinion? And we'll try and get 1 or 2 or 3 experts to have their say. So it's not prescriptive. It's really, really important.
And you leave it up to the
And then it's up
reader
to the
then
mother.
to make the choice
Yes.
with what they'd like to go with.
Yeah. And isn't that wonderful that we can do that?
We're spoiled for choice,
We
aren't
are, absolutely.
Let's go for our first ad break. I'm talking to Sonia Nadir. She is the editor of Living Loving magazine. I'm sure a lot of you remember the magazine. I do. We're talking about common pregnancy problems, and we'll kind of stick with between 3 and 5. So after the ad break, we'll continue talking common pregnancy problems. And if you have any questions or comments, call in. We'd love to hear from you. Welcome back. We're talking pregnancy problems or common pregnancy problems, and we've already touched on nausea. We just kind of mentioned nausea, and we spent a little time on high blood pressure. There are also issues around cravings, infections, weight gain or weight loss, and diabetes. So Sonia, which one do you want to take? Because these are all pretty common. You know as a woman, you know as a mom, you know as a pregnant person, that these are probably one or more of these conditions or problems is going to be encountered by you during your pregnancy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I think, again, my message is just to keep things under control. You know, it's while you're pregnant, it's so very incredibly important to look after your health. I think, you know, we find that a lot of moms, yes, they're carrying excess weight maybe before they fall pregnant, but if at all possible, and you can start managing that before you fall pregnant, again, it's so much easier, that whole transition. But the reality is that I think so many moms do have weight as they fall pregnant, but I think a big thing that we find as well is that moms are pretty inactive. And you know, it's again, my message to get moving. You know, just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you have to go and eat all the wrong things. You have to consciously
don't eat for two people.
Exactly. I mean, that is an old wives' tale. And yes, we've got the cravings, but it's about having balance in your life, and it means actually having to go see a dietitian. I mean, to try and get a balance of what you need that will help your baby and yourself. Again, if that is all balanced, you're not going to have so many cravings. It'll keep your weight under control. Those sort of like practical things. It's kind of seems like nonsensical, but it is so, so important.
And it's easier said than done, because here, you know, you'd be told just watch what you eat. But if you don't know what you're eating is going to create a problem as far as weight gain or weight loss is concerned, you're just going to go on regardless.
Right.
So it is worth the investment by either speaking with your doctor to give you a good eating plan whilst you're pregnant, or even go and see a nutritionist, because that's a great investment you'll be making. Because after the birth of the baby, if you've put on way too much weight, you're going to truly battle to lose that weight.
Exactly. And, you know, again, I can't stress enough as well, if you don't keep that under control, there's risks to your baby, ultimately, down the line. If you are overweight, you've got diabetes, you're obese, you know, complications can happen, and down the line, your future baby, there is a chance that she might develop obesity or type 2 diabetes down the road. So you can see how everything has that ripple effect. So that's really where we come from. It's like we just really want to encourage moms to try their very best, to just try and keep things in balance.
It's also crucial if you're a diabetic that when you're pregnant, you definitely have to follow doctor's orders. And if you're on meds, obviously you need to make sure that you stick with your meds routine or regime very strictly. And again, in conjunction with that, a very healthy diet. Let's look at infections. What are you prone to during pregnancy? I'm thinking UTIs. You know, are they more prevalent when you're pregnant, or is it kind of, you know?
I would say it is, but you've got
to... And why?
And so you've got to understand, again, it goes back to the hormones. You can just blame the hormones on everything that's going wrong.
Weight gain, weight loss, everything. Cravings, the
mood swings, whatever we're talking about. But yes, because your hormones are so rampant, obviously it provides that kind of environment where things like yeast infections and bacterial infections run rampant. It's exactly what it's looking for. So again, you know, you can take it back to practicalities. Yes, moms are more prone to these infections, but again, if you're going to for regular checkups, your doctor should be able to pick up these infections and then treat it accordingly. And of course, the sooner you go and sort it, the better. Don't leave it.
What are the risks if you don't pick up or alert your doctor to infections? How's it going to impact or harm the baby?
Well, not all infections are going to affect the baby. There are just certain types of infections that would harm them, because remember, you are protected. So there's just some infections that would be absorbed by the placenta into the uterus. So again, when you go to the doctor, he has to, as part of his protocol, he's got a test for certain infections. He would test for sugar in your urine. He would test for protein in the urine. There's various tests that he screens as a routine, and he'll pick that up. But if you're not going for your regular checkups, you really are then running a risk, putting your baby at risk. Things that could go wrong would be that maybe your baby doesn't develop properly. You could have a baby that stops growing. There are various things that, again, I don't want to scare moms out there, but you do run risks. So I really do appeal to them to go for these tests, and have those conversations and get treatment before it's too late.
We talked about watching your weight, eating sensibly, following a sensible diet. But how important is exercise during your pregnancy? A lot of moms and dads are very nervous. They don't want, perhaps, you overdo it and you then threaten to miscarry or whatever have you, or maybe in the process you may hurt baby. I'm not sure if that's possible, but there are those possibilities.
Exactly.
Your take on that?
So for me, it's not so much. I mean, you're not going to go and do CrossFit and anything hectic or decide to run a marathon. But I mean, there's lots and lots of evidence out there to show that if you just do regular activity, that already helps so much during pregnancy. And it means just consciously, like instead of driving somewhere, walking, for example, invest in a Fitbit and do your 10,000 steps, or try get to as close as possible. It's just like being consciously moving, climbing the stairs instead of taking the lift. Everything makes a difference, and that is where we come from. But then also, things like a gentle yoga class. You're not going to go and do...
And let me just come in there. We've got about a minute to wrap up. The trend these days are that girls, your BFFs, throw a pamper party for you. And I'm thinking about massages, etc. Is that helpful or hurtful to mom and baby?
No, I wouldn't say so. But I think you must definitely tell the therapist that you are pregnant.
And how far
she'll obviously see if you're having a pamper party. But it's very important they know, because obviously then they won't massage in certain areas. I did a lot of massage when I had my last baby, and it really, really helped me with my whole birthing process. Okay. But you wouldn't lie down, for example, on your tummy.
Sure.
So they just have different ways of doing it, and they might just concentrate on your neck and shoulders as opposed to rubbing your tummy and stuff like that. So
your final message to the viewers and very specially expectant mommies.
Yeah, well, I think if you haven't got the message now, it really is about the value of going for regular checkups, whether it's with your gynae or with a midwife or at your local clinic. That is really crucial that you take the time and do that, and be proactive, look after your diet, be a little bit more mobile than you are, and really just monitor things like your high pressure and
be happy,
weight.
because you want to give birth to a happy baby.
Absolutely, yes. So have fun as well.
So that's where we leave it. Okay, so pregnancy doesn't need to be a burden, excuse the pun. It can be and should be a very, very happy time for both mom and dad, the expectant parents. But you do need to look after yourself. You need to take care of your health and well-being. And this is just a very, very general discussion with Sonia this morning. I think in the coming weeks we'll go in much more detail with specific issues as far as pregnancy is concerned. So we do hope you'll keep us company then. We decided to give you just a bit of a teaser today, but we'll be going into much more detail and depth in the coming weeks. So thank you for watching, and right after this we're going to be looking at eco solutions. We're going to be talking about the water situation in the country and just how you should be applying your mind as far as your living spaces are concerned. So stay with us. And into our final segment, we have a guest who comes from Russia, Uzbekistan. He was born there, and then I think he was quite young when he moved to South Africa. He's made South Africa his home. And I'm going to try and say his name, but it will be without the Russian accent. So let's try it. Alosha Lenov. Is that correct?
Yeah, Alosha Lenov.
Oh no, I'll never get the Russian accent right. Morning, welcome to the program.
Good morning to you, thank you.
Nice to have you here. Do we have a big Russian community settled in South Africa?
We actually do. There is a church in Midrand, a beautiful church that they built with golden cupola.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Is that a Russian church? Okay, fine. So you've made, how long is it that you're in South Africa?
22 years now.
And this is home?
Yeah,
Okay.
for now, at the moment.
Perfect. You've traveled all around the world. You've done numerous courses all around the world. And the reason we're talking to you today is not because you're Russian. We're talking to you today because you have an amazing concept. You're running something called the Eco Self-Sustainability School. What is that all about? And how come a person as young as you is so involved and aware of sustainability and the ecosystem?
Well, what happened was 10 years ago, I decided to stop eating junk food, and my inner soul started to wake up and started to give me visions of food forests and Garden of Eden. I really saw the children picking the fruit off the trees, and since that day, I've decided to set myself to create this Garden of Eden on earth during my lifetime as much as I could. So I have traveled the world for the last 10 years, attending numerous workshops on dome construction using earth materials and loads of water courses on water filtration, grey water filtration, and then of course food forest gardening. So basically learning the practicalities behind what I see as heaven on earth.
Okay, so it's not really alternative, out of the box thinking necessarily. What you're talking about is very applicable, very especially today when we're having a water crisis in the Western Cape, and we here in Johannesburg don't have to think that it's not going to touch us. We know that the authorities are already talking about us here in Gauteng becoming more water wise and water conscious. Let's go back to that aha moment of yours 10 years ago. What were you eating and how is it impacting on your body when you decided that you need to turn your life around?
Well, I've joined like a meditation group where you could call it, where you just get within yourself, and they asked us just to start avoiding things like dairy and standard wheat and the sugar, the white processed sugar, and the cool drinks and the chips with all the E numbers and stuff. So I just cut that out.
Oh, so you're not a vegan or any such thing?
No, my diet is quite interesting. I eat, it's a raw vegan with fish, cooked fish. Raw vegan with cooked fish. So lots of raw juices, lots of salads, and then I have my fish, and then I don't eat after 3 because your body actually goes to sleep after 3. So if anything you put after 3 goes frot in your stomach until the next morning, 6 o'clock, and that's why everybody's aging and dying. So with this new diet, it's actually get a self-regenerative body, and you get every single organ in your body being replaced within 3 months.
Okay, I think we need to get you back in studio sometime soon to talk about nutrition and the different types of food and how it impacts on your body. But for purposes of today's show, let's talk about your eco school and when was it established?
Well, I've been
Before you get to the eco school, what did you study for?
I studied creative brand communications at Vega. So it's your digital, it's graphic design, and which is, I'm all using that now because the Eco School actually turned, so I've done a few live workshops, and I'm actually doing a live workshop on Monday. I've got 21 international students coming from all over the world, and we're actually building 2 domes, an aircrete dome and a sandbag dome. So here at my house in Fourways. But what I've been also really focusing is this online training. So I've got 2 courses, the abundance of water and this build your own home without debt. So because it's with your own hands and because it's a dome, it uses very little materials because it's a self-supporting structure like an egg.
All right,
But
you seem to be fixated with this whole idea of a dome, and I also know that you were involved with the construction of the Northgate Dome. I think the Coca-Cola Dome?
No, but I have decorated it with my previous
were you
business.
involved with the decoration, not the
Yes.
actual construction?
No.
Why the deep interest or possibly fixation with domes? What's the benefit of dome living or dome structures to us as human beings?
Well, first of all, because it's a self-supporting structure, or the actual shape, the roof only needs to be tiny, like 8-9 centimeters thick, over a 10-meter span. If you're to do a 10-meter span concrete straight roof, you'll need to have it a meter thick. So the price of materials goes right up. But but the main benefit, besides the cost, that you're able to build your home without climbing into debt in 3 months. That's the main benefit. The other main benefit is that there's a very strong connection to the source, to our creator, no matter what religion you're practicing, because when you're in the dome, it's like you're connected to entire cosmos. So whatever thoughts you have actually also manifest much faster in the dome.
It's very interesting that you talk about connecting with your creator and the dome-like structures, because we as Muslims, you'll notice that all our mosques have those minarets and the domes at the top. So there's
a reason for that.
Absolutely, yes.
But I think for this, for today, let's stick on to water. So water's been a very integral part of creating this heaven on earth.
Let's leave water for after the break. Let me just touch very quickly on the whole issue around getting rid of magnetic arrays or fields or whatever have you. What's that all about, and how does it fit into the conversation of today?
Well, it's a very powerful thing, because we have masts and cell phone masts and various radars going up more and more and more. And besides they're one of the main reasons for cancer. That coupled with geopathic stress. Geopathic stress is basically underground energies that are coming out of the earth. They're all coming out all over, and there is underground water crossings. And based on the angle, just the geometrical angle of where this river cuts to that river, makes that energy come out as a negative vibration, where you'll see trees with lumps over them, or a positive vibration where you'd see a mosque going up, or dolmen or Stonehenge going up. So our ancient forefathers were able to test for this energy, and with the science of biogeometry, which I have studied with Ibrahim Karim from Egypt, he basically can turn electromagnetic radiation into healing vibrations. It's basically a wave. It's a vertical wave that's very harmful to us, and you're able to distort it so we can still get the cell phone signal, but you don't get the hot ear and the cancer and so on.
Okay, let's go for an ad break. If you think that our guest is perhaps a new wave hippie, I think you need to rethink it. I think he's throwing out some very, very valuable information as far as ecosystem sustainability and the water issue is concerned, which we're going to touch right after the ad break. And we do hope that if you have any questions or comments, you're going to call in, because he'd be more than happy to respond to your questions. And we're continuing our fascinating discussion with Alosha. He's talking the Eco School and self-sustainability. We ended on the note of electromagnetic rays, and I think he still wants to say a little more about it. What would that be?
So our cells talk to each other electromagnetically. Do you have enough food? Do you need anything? So cells talk to each other like that. So when there is a cell phone signal or very strong mast or radar, they also talk to each other electromagnetically, but the signal is so strong, so it's like a breeze of our cells through a hurricane. So our immune systems go down. So it's not necessary that the towers make us sick, but our immune system really plummets down, and then, of course, anything can latch onto us. So that's just to wrap that chat up.
And just a final thought on that. We as Muslims pray 5 times a day, as you know. I think you said to me that your mom was half Muslim, so you are aware that Muslim people pray 5 times a day. And it's also said that when we go down in the prostrating position, that we become grounded and we rid our bodies of all these negative energies or negative forces. Would you agree with that?
Partially.
Or vibrations?
Partially. You definitely get the grounding, and grounding is extremely important. They even sell shoes now that got little copper wire that grounds you to the floor, so your body is actually grounded. So from that point, yes, but the vibrations are so powerful and they're all around us, you know, so you might get rid of them, but as soon as you stand up, you're being bombarded again. But we'll have a separate chat on that, and the biogeometry is something that can really transform that into healing vibrations, and people should look into Ibrahim Karim's work.
Okay. We're all aware that day zero is literally around the corner. People are really beginning to panic. They're not quite sure what the outcome's going to look like. But that, I think we need to take responsibility. I think we've not respected this amazing, precious resource called water. And that's why we find ourselves in the situation that we are in today. So how can we become more eco-friendly, and how do we conserve and use water in a more responsible manner? Okay,
so for every house, for every person that does have a house, let me tell you what I have done. So first of all, I've obviously gutters is the standard. You start harvesting off your roof. It's the cleanest water. That water is much cleaner than any other source of water from the pavement or from the road, roof water. What did you want to say?
It goes into a drum.
It goes into a drum, and this is where I've constructed 3 types of drum at a third of the price of a conventional plastic one, and it doesn't get hot. One is a ferrocement above ground tank, the other one is a 16,000 litre bean-shaped looking tank which are made out of sandbags which are attached to my straight wall, and the other tank is a 40,000 litre underground water reservoir with a flat floor above it where you can park your 2 cars. So you've got 40,000 litres under your driveway. So I've created that. Then that water goes to a biochar filter. And this is again an all hands-on DIY, low cost, low skill, easy to implement.
You say low cost, what sort of cost are we looking at?
2,000 Rand at 300 litres a day for the filter.
How does that compare with borehole water or a borehole pump?
Well, let me first tell you how does it compare to a standard filter that you get off the shelf that will give you 300 litres a day, and that's 40,000 Rand.
Sure.
And this will take you and 3 of your friends one weekend. And it's literally gravel, sand, biochar, which we make ourselves using wattle. So again, the alien tree that nobody is wanting. We chop it up, we burn it in a gasifier oven without any smoke, and that turns into biochar. And biochar is amazing. 1 cubic centimeter of biochar, all the little pores, if spread out, has the same surface area as a tennis court, a cubic centimeter of biochar. So the surface area is tremendous. So it catches E. coli viruses. And after I had the water tested, my pool water in Joburg goes through this filter. I had the water tested 200 times better than tap water.
Wow.
And then that water gets pressurized with a simple pump to your tap. So when you switch on any taps, it's like, the pump kicks in. And afterwards, that water is reused 7 times.
How?
Okay, first of all, that water goes through a wetland, which is, I teach in my webinar for free on my site. I'll give you the link just now. It's basically a vessel, a waterproof vessel with gravel and roots and plants do all the treatment because they love soaps. They use soap as food. So I've got sugarcane that's 5 meters tall, and papyruses and arum lilies. So first of all, it makes beauties and some herbs to eat, so that they grow. So that's the first time, and it's already treatment. Then that water goes to a collection drum with a lower point with a pump that kicks it back in and flushes the loo. So that's second use. After flushing the loo, and the same pump irrigates my garden, so that's 3 uses. After flushing the loo, the water goes to a biogas digester, makes methane gas. I actually got flame coming out of this thing from my toilet water. Then that water goes to another constructed wetland to treat up the sewage water, which is originally the water that I bathed and showered with yesterday, and that now grows more food, such as fig trees and other trees that can grow without any E. coli being present in the fruit. And then that water goes to irrigate a food forest garden. No smell.
So how big should your piece of land be to accommodate all of this?
Well, to start off, for Cape Townians that really need a quick solution, the there's the 1,000 liter, those chemical drums, they're called flow bins. It was a steel cage. You see them all over on Bucky's Travel. You can split that drum in half, and I teach in my free webinar how to do that. And you can construct a forever shower. In the first one, you shower, and that water goes through the little pebbles and stones into the second drum with papyruses and beautiful arum lilies. And then from that collection point at the end of the second drum, the water gets pumped through a submersible pump and circulates over and over and over and over again. So you have forever water and forever shower.
At what point do you have to dump that water? At what point does it reach where it's just not reusable? It has to reach a point of no use.
As long as you're using natural shampoos with Soapinalia officinalis, which is the soapwort berry, you can use that water forever.
We have this huge problem not only in South Africa but globally, the issue around microparticles of plastics in our water. How does that fit into your scheme of things?
Well, in my scheme of things, we harvest what we have on the land.
The pure water, the rainwater.
From the rainwater, and we harvest in the ground, something I haven't touched. Water flows 90 degrees to contourline. So that's universal earthly law, so it flows downhill. So if on contourline you can dig a trench, let's say 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter deep and as wide as you want, and you fill that trench with logs, sticks, mulch, manure and more soil, any water coming from top hill just drops in, and that garden has blossomed with abundance because you do a couple of these trenches every 2-3 meters and your garden pumps with water. It's just there's no water shortage. So with to answer your question, everything is, first of all, I've got 3 compost bins. There's one for eggshells, which we dry, which we use to make powder, which plug up our holes in our teeth, and it's a separate conversation. The other one is for lemons, citrus, fish, and that goes with dog poo in a hole in the ground.
And what is that? What do you use that for?
That eventually turns into compost.
Okay.
Okay. And then the third one is all my veggies and fruit
peelings,
and that goes to my worm bath. And my worms, I've got 1 million worms, and they eat all of that in a day, no smell, and then earthworm tea leaks out automatically. I mean, I'm having an open day soon at my school, and it's actually going to be for free on the 3rd of March on Saturday. And I invite everybody to come for free.
I'd love to be there.
Just to bring some seedlings, and we'll plant it out together. So if people can subscribe to my newsletter, and then I'll let them know. But basically, and then the plastic and the glass, I put it in a separate bag, and the guys pick it up on the side of the road, the whole bag, and they're so thankful to me because they don't have to dig through meat, fish, and all the gunk to get the plastic bottles and glass. The metal tins I put into that trench in the garden, so it rots, oxidizes, and gets me iron in my vegetables. And the paper I also throw in that trench because it turns into compost and mulch. So to answer your question, I don't produce any waste. That black bin fills up once a 7 months. So plastic in the water is not my story. I catch what comes from the sky in the ground and from the roof, treat it with a biochar filter, pressurize it to the house, reuse it 7 times over, and I don't lose 1 drop of water out of my house.
All right, so what about Cape Town that's in the grip of a 100-year drought? They're not going to get rain. Well, we hope so, but not anytime soon. Okay. What's the answer there for now? What's the short-term?
Short-term solution, watch my webinar. They'll teach you how to build a grease trap in 20 minutes, which basically takes care of your kitchen water, which is a dirty water which you don't want to mix with your wetland or your forever shower because it will just catch a stink. It's borderline sewage. But with a grease trap, you can reuse that water to water your herbs in the ground and flowers. At least the garden can be watered with that. Automated, not carrying buckets anyway.
What does all this cost? You know, I mean, you're talking about the most amazing concept.
The grease trap, 200 Rand. The forever shower, 1,000 Rand with plants.
All right. Now, for someone like myself, I'm not very into, you know, the building and constructing, etc. I won't be able to do this on my own. If I consult with you, what would the fee be?
I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. I do have a lot of students on my course that will be willing to come out and help.
So there are people that could help you construct these?
Yes, but it's simple. I really think people should start taking the water in their own hands. The projects that I teach, especially on the webinar, are extremely simple. Even in my course, I was able to teach unskilled, unemployed South African labor, okay, from start to finish. And I don't sit and watch them all the time. I tell them what to do, and I refine them, and they do it. So if I was able to teach them, I can teach anybody.
So how come you haven't talked with Joburg Water or Rand Water and, you know, sell this concept to them? We know that there's a problem at Hartbeespoort Dam as well with the hyacinths, the water hyacinths. That's a huge problem. How come you haven't approached these people yet?
You know, I need admin help to get me out there, but I have CEO of Johannesburg of Water, and I have invited him over 12 times to my house, and
he hasn't accepted.
He hasn't
All right,
come.
we need to wrap up. We definitely have to get you back on the show to talk lots more, to pick your brain. But your final word to our viewers this morning.
Well, just come and visit my website. It's bioveda.ru. And just come and check it out, have a look at my free webinar. You're going to learn quite a lot, and then at the end of the webinar, I'll offer you my course, and you can see if you like it. I'd really appreciate some support.
And what's the cost of the course?
It's sitting at 395 Rand. It's really affordable.
And how long does it take to go through?
It's maybe like 20, 30 hours.
Okay. Thank you for being with us. Fascinating talking to you.
Great.
What a colourful and fascinating character, telling us an amazing story about the ecosystem and how to become sustainable. We certainly need to get him back on air, and don't forget to visit his website. I'm sure you're going to be in for a treat. Till the next time, as always, a very big thank you from our production team, the Let's Talk production team. Thank you for your company. And as always, it is Assalamu alaikum and Khodafez from me, Julie Alli.
Ya hala, 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 ya hala. حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا